The title of this lesson is Drugs and You, drawn from the textbook, page 34 and 35. Three main objectives for this lesson. Describe what a drug is and the effects of some drugs on both the body and the brain. Compare the impact of legal and illegal drugs. And evaluate the impact of drugs on society. A number of keywords that you'll need to know for this lesson. Beneficial, a good thing, a benefit. Harmful, you should know what that means. Side effects, these are the unwanted effects that drugs have on the body and the brain. Legal and illegal, again, words that you should already know. Performance enhancing, these drugs will improve the performance of a person who's taking them, either mental performance or physical performance. Recreational, something that's done for fun, for leisure. Drug abuse, there's a difference between drug use, someone who's taking some paracetamol because they have a headache, and someone who's abusing a drug, who feels that they can't cope with life and resort to binge drinking, let's say. Addictive, again, this is a concept we're familiar with, but this describes people who feel they can't go without taking this drug on a very regular basis. And withdrawal. These are the symptoms that drug addicts will undergo when they're trying to stop their habit, but their body or their brain has become so used to taking in that drug that they react badly to not having that drug in their system. For more information and revision purposes, make sure you go to the BBC Bite Size website. Remember, we're studying the AQA spec, and go to drugs_use. What is a drug? A drug is a chemical that alters the way the body or the brain works. A drug may also alter behavior, so how you behave, or metabolism. Remember what that word means. It alters how your body uses energy. It may slow down how you use energy, or it may speed up. Can you think of any drugs that change how you feel? Think about it. You wake up in the morning, you're really tired, you're really sleepy. A lot of people in the UK and around the world will automatically reach for a drug to help them wake up, to perk up, to get started in the day. Think about what that drug is. Harmful versus beneficial. Medicines are beneficial because they cause useful effects on the body or the brain, such as analgesics, such as this one here. They will inhibit nerve impulses. What nerve impulses are they inhibiting? They're preventing or slowing down or reducing the pain signals from reaching the brain. Antibiotics will kill a certain type of microbe. Only one type, remember that. What do they kill? They kill bacteria. And statins. These chemicals are often taken by people who are overweight, or sometimes people who are older. These drugs will lower cholesterol. However, many drugs have to be monitored, and that's why they're prescribed by doctors, because they can be harmful. How can they be harmful? They can cause those side effects that we talked about earlier. They can interfere with other drugs. They can adversely or negatively affect certain people more than others. And they can be harmful if they're taken too often, such as an overdose. Now take a look at this label here, taken from a typical drug, like a hay fever tablet. It may cause drowsiness. Means that people who take this will start to feel sleepy. Look at the next line. Alcohol may intensify this effect, meaning that the alcohol mixed in or taken at the same time as this drug may make this person feel even sleepier than they otherwise would. Of course, with that, these labels always tell you that when you're operating a car or dangerous machinery, you have to be careful. In fact, most labels of this kind will say, do not drive while taking this drug. Now let's take a look at the types of drugs that you'll encounter on your exam. Here I have representations of different types of drugs, and these drugs are often classified or sorted out and regulated by law, by the government, according to how they are used and their legal status. So let's take a look at some of these. Which one of these drugs would be legal, but something that people take for fun? Cigarettes contain a drug called nicotine. People take this not because it's going to make them healthier, far from it. They take it because it makes them feel good. And of course, alcohol is another drug. Again, this is one of those drugs that people take to feel good or feel better or to change how they feel. It's a recreational drug. What about a legal performance enhancing drug? Which one of these would those be? A hot cup of coffee or tea. Why coffee or tea? Well, what does it contain? Caffeine. Caffeine is a mental performance enhancer. It wakes you up. It makes you not necessarily smarter, but it speeds up the nerve impulses in your brain, which means you tend to have faster reactions, which means you think a bit faster, which is why, like I said earlier, in the morning, a lot of people reach for a cup of coffee or tea. All right? It enhances how they perform in the morning. And of course, I've got an assortment of various illegal drugs. And these are the types of drugs that people take for recreational purposes. They want to change how they feel. They want to feel better or worse or whatever it happens to be. And this last one here, represented by Lance Armstrong, who recently has admitted to taking illegal performance-enhancing drugs throughout his career. The drugs that he's taken helped him to win a number of biking events, and of course, since he's been found out, he's had those titles stripped from him. Now, why are some of these things illegal? What are the problems associated with illegal drugs? Well, recreational drugs are often unethical, in the case of performance enhancers, of course. They're dangerous to health, and they can be addictive, and it can lead to further addiction to harder drugs. Now, some of you may have heard of this concept of gateway drugs, such as you take something like cigarettes, nicotine, that might lead you to start smoking cannabis, which might lead you to take other drugs like heroin, which are even harder on the body. So this is why society and governments are concerned about the addictive nature of recreational drugs. Drug abusers who are addicted to recreational drugs often find it difficult to overcome their health-damaging habit because of withdrawal, where the body and or the brain react adversely or negatively to the lack of stimuli from the drugs. Because these people are taking drugs to change the way they feel, their body gets used to it after a while. And if you suddenly take away that stimuli, the body reacts very badly, in some cases, to this lack of stimulus. Think of it this way. Do you know of anyone who's ever tried to quit smoking? What withdrawal symptoms did they have? Did they succeed in quitting? Look at this young lady here. If you look carefully, this is Amy Winehouse, before and after her battle with drugs and alcohol. She had a number of problems, and take a look at some of the adverse effects that she's suffered over the years. Are there any problems associated with legal drugs? Just because a drug is legal, that does not mean it's safe. Alcohol and nicotine are legal, of course, with age restrictions. But we all know that alcohol and nicotine will carry health risks. Alcohol, you run the risk of liver cancer, liver disease, cirrhosis of the liver, stomach cancer. With nicotine, smoking, you run the risk of lung cancer, emphysema. All drugs have their side effects and have their risks. Who is affected by drug abuse? Of course, individual drug abusers suffer from individual, in other words, health problems, social problems, and economic problems specific to that one person because of their addiction. We can all think of how a drug addict would suffer from poor health. They might have suffered from an injury while they're on their drugs. They might have suffered from some chronic disease, some form of cancer. Social problems. Drug addicts do not get on well in society. They may commit crimes. They may be sent to jail. They may not be able to get a job, which leads to economic problems. Because they're so focused on trying to get money for their drugs, they may resort to criminal activity. Or they may have just very little money because they're spending all their money on their drug. But beyond just the individual, there are a number of other people who would be affected by drug users. So we call these people stakeholders. Who are some of these stakeholders that are affected by drug abuse? Friends, of course, of the drug addict. The police would not be very happy about having an increase in the number of drug addicts. The NHS would also be affected by drug addicts and drug abuse. Local councils. I've left a few gaps here for you to also consider some other stakeholders who would be affected by drug abuse. Now, do legal or illegal drugs have a greater impact on society? Which one has a greater impact? The legal stuff, such as alcohol and smoking, or the illegal stuff, cocaine, heroin, what have you? Think about that for a moment. Well, it turns out, numerically, there's a lot more or a lot greater impact by the legal drugs, nicotine, alcohol, than those who take illegal drugs such as cocaine and heroin. Why is that? Well, legal means that's more common. It's more readily available. It's easier for people to pick up their drug of choice. They can go down to the shops and buy their cigarettes. They can go down to the supermarkets and buy their alcohol. They're not going to get in trouble for it. It's legal for them to take these drugs, of course, if you're of age. But because of that, it's a lot easier for people to abuse these drugs. Whereas cocaine, heroin, cannabis, because it's illegal, it's harder for people to acquire, and therefore they may carry higher individual risk, but in terms of sheer numbers and the impact of society, there are far fewer drug addicts than there are drinkers and there are smokers. And that concludes this lesson.